And we're live.
Here we go. What episode is this, Miguel?
This is episode 7, I believe.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm actually super excited about this one. We've been testing around different stuff between the you and I episodes and the guest episodes. So this one we have a theme for today's episode, and I'm excited for it. So why don't you tell us what we'll be talking about today?
We'll be talking about different topics, world current-ish events, and concepts behind what's going on with the problems of our world,
Yeah.
country.
Country. I think
Things.
we focused a little more on the country, at least from the topics we talked about. We kind of split them up between us. So one of us is going to be a little more educated on the topic than the other. So I think that's going to be interesting. But I found, at least the research I did on my topics, there are things that I feel kind of strong about. But at the same time, doing research on it, it made me that much more like passionate about it per se, because I didn't realize it was as bad as they were for certain things. So I know I have 2, and how many do you have?
I got 2-ish.
Okay, 2-ish. You want to go first? Or you want me to go first?
You know what? You go first.
Okay,
You go
so
first.
for the people listening, there's going to be a theme today, and we're kind of like under looking at items that impact America, but kind of a little bit more from like a legislative perspective. So like I focused on things that have to deal with Congress, and I know that you focused on some stuff. It sounded like that we're going to be at least.
Sci-fi.
Oh, sure. Sci-fi. Okay, so I'm Congress, you're sci-fi. 2 different approaches, but in a weird way, I think it's going to align. So the first topic I had was talking about, which I think is kind of a trending topic right now, the congressional age of like our congressmen and women, and so senators and House of Representatives. What is the age of our congressional members, and is there a problem here? So just giving you, maybe we do this one kind of some Q&A just to see what you think. I always love this part. So what do you think the average age of a senator? So there's 100 senators.
100 senators.
What do you think the average age of our senators is right now?
We have some greedy people in the Senate. They're not willing to pass the torch. You know what? I'm going to give it 57.
57.
57.
Okay. There was a time it was 57. It is no longer 57.
It's younger?
It's older.
Older
And
than 57?
And that's the problem. So everything I'm going to start talking about really highlights the fact that we got an old Congress. It's actually, so it's the oldest average Congress age we've ever had. Right now, the average age of our senators specifically, is 64.4. So think about that. In America, what is the target age of retirement?
You know what's funny? I actually looked that up recently, and I think the IRS said in like 2021, I don't know if it's been updated, for men it was like 65, I think, something like that. And I think for women it was like 61, 62, something like that. I don't know. It was something like that.
And that's the point, is that I've always, like, you grow up and you're listening to these things and you're kind of hearing about it and you're like, oh, I want to retire by 65. That's kind of like the catchphrase people have. I want to be retired by 65. I feel like even younger nowadays, if anything, people want to retire earlier. So the fact that the average age of our senators is 65 means we have a whole bunch of people who are well past what people want to retire at, and those are the people running the country. So I want to give you a few numbers to give you perspective as to what's happening, because I think, and this is why I was saying it's trending, and overall I think this is a bipartisan issue. I was looking at kind of the breakdown of ages and stuff, and it's not like, oh, one party is really old and the other's young. No, both of them got some really old people. But to give you some context of where the Senate's been going, and I'm interested to see if you can think of some reasons why, but the average age of senators in 1901, 57.6. So over 100 years ago, 57.6, which is kind of what you guessed at first. In 1949, 57.3. So it actually went down in those 50 years by 0.3 of a year. In 1975, 56. So it was hovering between 57 and 56 and slightly going down. Here's where it gets interesting. In 2001, it became 59.3, and now in 2023, it's 64.4. So basically, after 1975, and I had a chart of every year the average age, it started going up. So just off of that, any knee-jerk reactions? Why? Let me ask you, why do you think that the average age of senators is going up?
Man, the lust for greed and power grows every year, and these people are not willing to just let some of these dreams go. I think it's like you said, people are generally retiring somewhere between the age of 60 to 65. And if that's when people usually are retiring, a lot of times it's because they're losing cognitive function. They've hopefully worked towards a part of their life where they can call like the golden years and relax. So why they choose to now run the country, I don't know. It's a little bizarre at a certain point to just be like, you know what? Now when I'm not in my prime, I'm going to start doing making huge decisions for the whole country. I'm not sure. I can only think legacy. You know what I mean?
I completely agree. I think that it's these people who get in power and then they have the toughest time giving it away, which I don't know if it's I guess the thing I don't know is it that these types of people go into it and that's just who they are and they're going into it to be as long as they can be in it? Or is it the type of thing that once you're in it, you change somewhat and you're like, I can't get rid of this. I feel like you hear of a lot of people who go into public office and trying to serve and they have good intentions, or at least they make it sound like it when they're campaigning. And then whether it's, what happens on the Hill or whatever the case might be, by the end of it, they seem a little more corrupt, which actually relates to another topic I'm going to have later. And they just don't want to get out. Like at a certain point, it's funny. Okay, so I had a few more stats for you. So there are 54 senators. So 100 senators total. Over half of them are over 65. So, it makes sense what the average is, but that just shows to show you it's not like there's these crazy outliers. Over half of them are over 65. Let me ask you one more question. How many senators of the 100 do you think are over 80? 80. How many do you think?
By the way you say it, I'm gonna go 10% of the Senate. So 10 senators.
It's not that bad, but so there's the oldest senator is 89 right now, pushing 90. But there's 4 over 80, and then there's 2 right on the heels of that. So by the time their term's over, there are 79. So we're talking 6. So 6% of the Senate is 80, basically 80 or older. Which I don't care who you are. This isn't trying to be mean. This isn't trying to attack people for whatever. No one at 80 is operating on where their mind was at in their 30s, 40s, 50s, even 60s, I guess you could say. But at 80, your brain's not there fully. Like, these people are running the country, and there's 6 people voting on stuff that they're 80, plus almost 90. I just think it's crazy. I didn't realize there was that many, and it was as bad as it was.
Yeah, I think part of it, and I don't know, I didn't look at the statistic on it, and the more I'm thinking about it, I think part of it isn't necessarily that people turn 64 and they're like, all right, let's run for Congress. I think a lot of these people are career politicians.
Yeah.
And they've been doing this for a long time. And they're like, I can still maybe still run for president at whatever age, 75, 77, 80 years old. And they just won't give up that title of Congress, even if maybe they're not, their best years of working are behind them. Because maybe they have like a good working team surrounding them, making, helping them make good decisions, right? Which everybody needs a team helping them make good decisions, but sometimes it seems like some teams are more involved than others.
Well, here's the bigger problem, I think. And, when you have these individuals, we're not talking about people who want to work at their, local grocery store or kind of have a job to stay busy. This is the most arguably demanding and important job in the nation, which is making all of the policies, running the nation from a policy standpoint, deciding on things that impact over 300 million people. And I don't think, and that's why I said this is bipartisan, because I think that if you looked at it on both sides, I don't think your average American is like, yeah, let me get a bunch of old people to make the decisions for the country. So it's a really weird thing. Like, I just throwing out a few more things. So the House of Representatives, a lot more people than 100, but it's a little better where it's at 57.8 as the average age. And the oldest person there is 86, so still not great. In the Senate, the youngest person is 36, and the House, the youngest person is 26. So the House seems to be a little bit better off, but it also has more numbers in it. But ultimately, I think the problem is that there's a demographic of people who aren't operating at full capacity, making the biggest decisions in the nation, and they don't really reflect who we are as a nation. It's like we're not a nation of all these old people, and I don't think they're the best people to be making these decisions anyway. I saw this one more stat, and then I just thought this was interesting too. So a third of the representatives are over 60, where the district they represent, so the people that voted them in, the median age is 35. So they're double the age of the people they're representing on average, which to me is like, I don't know. It doesn't, something's off. Something isn't clicking here.
Yeah. I also was thinking about this as you're talking, and Eugene, you can fact check me on this, but I think in the Constitution, at least for president, I know it's like the minimum age is 35, and I don't know if there's a maximum age. But I don't think George Washington, Ben Franklin, TJ, and the rest of them, because I think there are actually like 50 founding fathers. We only talk about 5 of them in common knowledge, but there's like 50 of them. I don't think they were expecting like people to be like 80 years old being like, I want to be the president, or I want to run like the legislative branch, because modern medicine wasn't up to speed. I think if they knew, they'd have somebody that in those days they considered a dinosaur still over here, filibustering the Senate or the House. I think they would have made a rule about that, because there's only so much they could have foreseen at that time. So I think, when people, because I know people are probably going to be like, what? If the founding fathers wanted them to have a max age, they would have. I'd be like, they couldn't have seen everything coming.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I mean, it'd be an interesting stat. What was the average age of passing away back then?
45,
50, something like
way.
that. So no one was making it to 80
yeah.
back then.
During Jesus' time, it was like 30.
Yeah.
They said you have to at least be 35 to be president, and there's no upper limit.
There's no upper limit. Yeah.
What about for Congress?
For Congress?
But yeah, I thought that was true. I've never heard of an upper limit, but it's something to discuss.
Yes.
Is there a point when God love them for doing what they did, but your day has come and gone, you're not fully there? I mean, and this is why I can say it's bipartisan, because I can actively think of one person on each side of the aisle where they're just not there. And I'm not talking like not there as in like, oh, they're like having a typo in an email. I'm talking they're standing there. You ask them a question, and there is no cognitive function being seen by the person.
Mitch McConnell's
one, and who's the other one?
Joe Biden.
Joe Biden. You could throw that one out there too. Yeah. I was thinking of who's that other person? Feinstein. She's there. But here's one thing I looked up. So there's no upper age. But where did I find the stat? It was crazy. So Congress has procedures in place to remove members. But no legislator has ever been expelled for medical reasons. And they said basically somewhere in there too that even if someone has to leave for medical reasons, they usually leave the seat vacant. It's like this weird gap we have where it's like you can be as old as you want, where medical things start popping up, but we're not going to kick you out for it. And even if you have to go on like leave or whatever, we'll just not have that person vote, and we'll just have an empty seat. When it's like, no, this clearly is a problem. Let's get healthy, cognitive people running our nation. I don't feel like that's a crazy ask at all.
Yeah, and for the fundamental constitutionalists, who I can sympathize with you guys occasionally, if you're like, well, the founding fathers would have said something, or like, would they though? There's a lot of things they weren't going to be able to tell was going to be a problem down the line. I bet they all got together, and when they put that minimum, they were like, should we put a maximum? Like, what? Are people going to be alive in their 80s and 90s doing this? No. And plus, let's say they do. I'm sure people down the line will have fixed it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And here we are 200 years later, like, damn, should we put a cap on this? This is crazy. Yes. We have people freezing up.
It says for Congress, there's no age limit. And this like video.
What's the minimum?
Well, I know for Congress, there's a senator I think Congress is like 35 or something too, but the House of Representatives, I said, has a 26-year-old who's the youngest. So it's pretty young.
It's at least 35 for House and 30 for Senate.
30 for Senate.
That's what I'm seeing.
Okay. Is that by the Constitution, or is that?
It's not like I'm not getting it straight from U.S. Gov, so it's not giving me that.
But I think the point is, if they were thinking about it, saying, "Hey, this is a really important job role. You can't be under a certain age because you just haven't lived enough. You're not qualified for the position because you got a season, you got to have experience, you have to have these things." They were kind of inherently putting in some criteria for you to be able to do the job. You need these things. On the other side, it's just as true. Maybe it's a different thing where now you have too much experience and your brain has been worn down and you can't think anymore, but it's the same thing. Like, yes, I agree some people are too young to represent the nation because they just haven't experienced enough, but some people are too old and their brain's not working anymore. It's nothing against them. There might be great people, but if you're not able to mentally process the topics that are being presented to you and you're making decisions for everyone in the nation, you're not the right person for the job.
Yeah, it's like the opposite of why we don't let people under a certain age, run the country, because you may not have enough experience. You may not be developed enough in your brain, or just have the cognitive function that is really required to fire at a high level. You can definitely have the opposite thing happen at the other level. So I don't know. Definitely something that should be re-examined by the right people. But, the people who would re-examine are the people.
That's the problem. They're representing their own interests
You know
at this point.
They're like, whoa, what's this? A term limit or an age limit? Oh, hell no, man.
Well, I think the best example of what I've seen, too, is that so here's my personal belief about Congress, Senate, all of it, elected officials. They are elected by the people to represent the people. So, like, in theory, my belief is that you should be looking for the best qualified candidate that understands you as their representative and is going to represent you on the Hill in government. So I don't know how you can look at someone like that and say, like, yes, we do need a portion of Congress to be on the older side because they are representing the elderly in the country, and they are the ones who are going to be able to kind of have had experience. They can mentor younger Congress people. They can, teach them how the system works. You need mentors in place, but you also need a younger demographic who represent that group. And like, I don't know. I remember watching. Do you remember the TikTok case that came up when they were like having TikTok go on Congress, and you had these senators who they didn't even understand Wi-Fi. Like, they're so old that they were asking questions that, like, they're not with the times anymore. And I think that in addition to them cognitively not following things, like, culturally, they're not following things that are happening in the nation. So, yes, we need some representative of it. But when you have, what was the stat? It was like 54 senators over 65. That means 54 people voting on something don't know how to scroll on an iPad anymore. Like, that's crazy. I don't know.
Yeah. Listen, and if Mitch McConnell or Feinstein or Bernie or anybody wants to come on to defend their position, we're more than welcome to have you on. But you can't come on for 5 minutes. You got to be on for at least 45, and really discuss these things at length. You know what I mean? Would love to have any of you guys on if you want.
Yeah. And this is my last thing on it. I do think that we can look at the senators and be like, oh, you're greedy, you're corrupt, you're like blah blah blah, you're just you're money hungry, whatever the reason might be why they're staying longer than they should. But at the same time, and I think this is a problem of what we all do in America, is that we look at a situation and we say what's wrong with the situation, and we don't take a step back and say, like, well, why is this happening? Those 89-year-old people are getting elected by Americans. So I think everyone, if you're upset with the age of your senators and Congress people, you need to look at your voting patterns. And incumbents have this very high re-election rate in the country, and I think that's part of the political machine. But at the end of the day, they need the votes. And talking to the people of America, if you're the type of person who's voting for someone who isn't cognitively able to do the job, you need to really look at yourself and say, what is your motivating factors for why you're voting? Because if you're the type of person that's so politically party affiliated that you would vote for someone who isn't mentally there anymore over someone else who might be a better qualified candidate, what's going on in your head. Like, yes, these senators have greed and all of that, but at the same time, you as the American voter, why are you voting for these people? Like, if I saw my senator not being able to talk in an interview, you're not getting my vote anymore. It's just not happening. So, I don't know. I think we can talk about the senators, but people as a whole in America need to look at themselves in the mirror and say, why am I voting for these people, and why are there so many old people in Congress? Because your vote matters. So.
Yeah. Especially now in today's age, and I'm not saying this because I have a podcast, but it is impressive to see how some people who are running for different positions in Congress or for president are willing to go on a podcast and talk in a long form. And I think something that may happen is that a lot of these people who are kind of hiding behind 5-minute, CNN or Fox News segments, and they just say 5 minutes worth of stuff and walk away. I think now it'll be interesting. So Americans need to be tuning in to when elected official, whether it's presidential or legislative, actually get on a long form and actually make sure that they can actually talk, right? They're actually making these decisions. These ideas come from their brain, and they're not just being telepromptered in from a different room. So that's definitely something that will be something that Americans should evaluate, as they go to the voting booths for whatever position.
Yeah. So, I don't know. It was, I actually, the more I researched it, the more frustrated I got. And the more I was like, these people are greedy because they were staying in way past when they should be there. And now they're just kind of like part of the system. And at the same time, I really thought about it and I was like, who is voting for these people? How are they getting elected? And that's on us as the people.
It's on us. And I think, and I don't mean to beat a dead horse, but I think part of the reason is, to some people who really don't tune in, they look fine because you're just watching 1-minute clips of them talking.
Yeah.
But I would almost challenge people to try to watch these people in longer forms, and if you can't find them really talk, try to evaluate if they're really, really like all there. Because nowadays and age with social media, people who are not there are getting exposed left and right, and it is something for people to take notice of.
Yeah. So, people out there, watch long form. Don't just look for the 10-second clips. I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
I think that it's something that needs to be addressed because it's not going the right direction. Like I said at the beginning, that it's getting older every time, and we have the oldest one ever right now. So
100%.
let's kind of reverse course. So anyway, that was my first topic. What do you
right.
got for yours?
Okay. We're gonna go with. Should we be genetically modifying animals and releasing them into the wild? And I'll give you the first example of this happening. Mosquitoes.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, Florida just dropped like 2 billion mosquitoes in I think it was like the Keys, Florida, in order, from what I understand, and Eugene, you can fact check me on this, the reasoning was something to the effect of like combating other mosquitoes. All right. So they, here's my thing. Here are my 3 reasons to not genetically modify mosquitoes and release them into the wild in movie form. 1, Jurassic Park. I don't know if you guys have seen Jurassic Park, but they modified a bunch of dinosaurs and they were killing everybody and they were out of control, and all the scientists were like, damn, maybe we shouldn't have been playing God. Maybe this was a bad idea. And I'll be honest with everybody right now. I'm not an expert. I'm just a guy. But I'll tell you right now, if I was in those rooms, I would have told the scientists, let's not make dinosaurs. Let's not make these dinosaurs, put them all on, let them go rampant, and then send people away. I wouldn't have done that. Reason number 2 in movie form, Deep Blue Sea. Have you guys ever seen Deep Blue Sea? It's about a shark that they make super smart and super strong. It's about 3 of them. And they kill everybody in an underground aqua base. And the reasoning, when the scientists were like, when the regular people asked the scientists, like, why did you make a super shark? They were like, to combat cancer. And I was like, and everybody was like, what? They made a super shark. And they had to kill the super shark. So they didn't have it long form. it wasn't a good idea. Watch the movie. Third, and this was an accident, so I'll give everybody credit there. But Godzilla. Godzilla was a nuclear created super lizard. So yeah, genetically modified on accident, right? I think when we nuked Hiroshima, and so that one was an incident. But even in this universe, Godzilla isn't a good thing. He goes around, he's blowing up cities, he's creating havoc all over the world, he's beefing with King Kong, and we could have done without him. Now, given all of these things are movies, they're fiction, I get it. But damn, who's to say art doesn't imitate life or life doesn't imitate art? Hence, mosquitoes. Now, to my understanding, there is no science yet to link it. But there's also new cases of malaria in certain parts of Florida, I believe, as of this year. So I'm just thinking, new mosquitoes, new malaria cases. Could there be a link? I don't know, but it is something to take note, right? In the same area they're dropping a bunch of mosquitoes, there's a new thing of malaria, or there are new cases of malaria, where there weren't. And I don't know. To me, fighting mosquitoes with superpowered mosquitoes doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But that's just me. What do you?
Make sure, yeah, you're right. It says here that a British biotech firm got the green light from the U.S. regulators to release over 2 million genetically modified mosquitoes in Florida and California.
2 million, 2 billion.
2 million.
2 million.
2 million.
So not 2 billion. But
not 2 billion.
So a British, in case you didn't hear, our fact checker Eugene doing the tech said a British biotech firm released 2 million. So fact checked, 2 million.
Double fact check. Put 2 billion mosquitoes in Google and see.
Here's my question. One, why is a British firm involved in this process? If this is a kind of activity happening in America, I just don't see the correlation there. And two, why is this? In something like this, it seems like it's a public health thing. Don't you think that citizens should be made more aware of this and had some say in it? Like, I don't understand this. If it's a British biotech firm, that's a privatized institution. So what I don't know, and I don't know the details, I didn't research as much as you, and I'm not fact-checking right now, but is this the government doing this, or is this a private firm? Because if it's a governmental thing, wouldn't it have to be voted on? And if it's a private thing, I just don't think a private firm should have the capability to drop hazardous animals into the environment, regardless of what they are, especially, to your point, if they're genetically modified and we don't know the outcomes of that. So to me, when I heard this, I thought it was like one of those fake stories that you see on like one of those funny things. And then I saw it and I researched it a little just to see. And I saw, yes, it was actually on, I think, the Department of Health or something like that, where they had it on the government page that was happening. But that's what I'm saying. Is this the government doing this, or is this a private company doing this? And why is this just like, where was this authorized?
Yeah. Ronnie DeSantis, what's going on, my guy?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's saying, according to Smithsonian Magazine, it says they're planning to release 2.4 billion genetically modified mosquitoes.
Okay, so 2.4 billion is the total, and they're doing them in increments of 2 million at a time. But I don't understand.
That's a lot of mosquitoes.
I feel like mosquitoes are, I don't know. Whenever you try to mess with nature, I don't think you ever have really good outcomes.
And apparently, they're going to be non-biting males engineered only to produce viable male offspring, and it's from a different firm. It says Oxitec.
So again, just to put it on the audio part, it's non-biting male mosquitoes. What is that? How do we make it not bite?
I don't know.
And what are they putting in these things?
Yeah.
And why?
To fight other mosquitoes.
That doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. You're putting 2.4 billion mosquitoes out there to fight mosquitoes? It makes so little sense to me. Again, I thought it was like a satire article.
This could be like a Bug's Life movie. Like one of these super mosquitoes meets like a regular mosquito and they have kids, and then it turns into a horror film. And it turns into like super powerful mosquitoes that actually do bite people over time. The other thing is like, You know what's really weird to me, if you think about it, and I'm not trying to get into conspiracies and all of that, but if you think about this, there's been a lot in the news about genetically modified things that are killing, like not killing people, but ruining America, like food.
Yes.
Genetically
GMOs.
modified
Yes.
food,
That's yeah.
genetically modified cows, anytime we're genetically modifying anything, we're kind of fucking it up. You know what I mean? We're really like not doing a good job with the long-term effects. In the short term, things always seem great, right? People are like, "Wow, we have bigger, juicier bananas. We have really good burgers. Like we can mass produce burgers, And maybe at first we'll be like, "Oh, great! Like we have less biting mosquitoes. Now we got a bunch of like stupid swole mosquitoes until they start biting. Until one mosquito bites a human."
But what is the problem? I don't understand. Why are we trying to stop mosquitoes? I don't understand that in the first place. They've been around for a long, long time. Why all of a sudden are we attempting to stop mosquitoes? Is anyone answering that? What is the point of killing the mosquitoes? I feel like there's so many things they just were like, "Oh yeah, we're releasing 2.4 billion mosquitoes to kill the mosquitoes." And most people when they hear that they're like, "Oh, okay." But like, can we ask why we're killing the mosquitoes? Yeah. Is anyone saying, why do we need... I hate mosquitoes. They bite you. It sucks. I get that. But I have never said this is a global issue or a country issue that we need to get rid of the mosquitoes. They've been around for forever. Society has operated. What is the intention of killing the mosquitoes?
Yeah, and then like,
why?
If the experiment goes wrong, what the hell are they gonna do?
They're gonna be like, "Oh, we tried to kill the mosquitoes, but it didn't go right."
It didn't go right.
Like, but you didn't need to kill them in the first place.
Yeah, and then they're gonna be like, "You know what? We're gonna do mosquitoes 3.0."
Yeah. They're gonna modify the mosquitoes to kill the mosquitoes, and it's like, where does it end?
It never ends. It never ends.
But can you honestly? And I get really frustrated at times, so I gotta calm down because there are certain things I see people doing in society, and I'm like, I don't understand it. I can't come up. I tell you this all the time. I can't come up with a logical reason why we're doing something. So maybe sometimes it's like I have blinders on. But why would we want to kill the mosquitoes?
I want a real scientist to come on from
if
that
we could.
firm, from that biotech, whatever, any of them, just come on, tell us why it's so necessary to make supercharged mosquitoes that allegedly don't bite and will not be a public health concern in 5 years. That's the thing that really scares me, because if they do screw up, it'll just be one of those things like, oh, now we got to come up with the solution.
Yeah.
Now, like, it's like you letting a genie out the bottle. Like, we can't really get rid of mosquitoes like that, to my understanding. If a place.
But even if you could, why? Let's say you can. Why?
Why what?
Why get rid of the mosquitoes?
Well, if you could get rid of them from the beginning, you should have just got the original ones.
But that's not answering my question. Why get rid of them? If you can, let's say snap of the fingers, mosquitoes are gone. Is that a good thing?
Yeah.
Why?
Mosquitoes suck.
Okay, they suck. They're annoying. I'm saying that, but they're part of our natural ecosystem. They haven't. Don't get me wrong. They've caused a lot of death with like transmitting disease and all that. I hear all that. It's a big problem. But do we know what the world looks like without mosquitoes? Like, let's say they're successful. What if there's a huge problem where we just didn't understand and mosquitoes are a part of the natural environment that's necessary? Have you ever heard the wolf story?
About like wolves.
So wolves were in, I'm a nerd for wolves, so I'm going to tell you this story, but it's actually true and I can look it up and I'll get you a link to it. So wolves were mass hunted in Yellowstone National Park. And they almost got to the point of extinction, right? And then for a while they were gone, and like Yellowstone National Park was kind of seeing like changes in the environment because now there's a predator that was out. And basically after a period of time, they started reintroducing wolves again, and they found that because the wolves were back, it impacted another animal class, which impacted another one, which impacted another one. And I wish I knew the details because it's actually an incredible story. But because it was impacting all of these animals along the chain, it got to the point that the animals were so intertwined with the environment that it actually impacted, I think it was like something like the beds of the river at Yellowstone, and it was like the entire environment of Yellowstone changed down to like the shape of the river and how it flowed because wolves were taken out and put in. And I think that although mosquitoes are annoying and they carry disease and all of that, I don't think we're supposed to live in a world without mosquitoes. They serve a purpose. So we're not here to, like you said, play God and change which animals are around and which ones aren't. I don't know. Give me a good reason why. I'd love the British biotech firm to come on and really explain this one out, because I am at a brick wall I'm looking at as to why are we doing this. The downsides seem huge. The upside, I don't even see it.
If you guys want to just call in on a Zoom, we'll do that.
Yeah, make a special arrangement. Like, explain this one to me, man.
Did you find anything on why they're even why the mosquitoes gotta go?
To correct what I said earlier, it's only one company. It's Oxitec.
Oxitec?
Yeah. OXITEC, and it says to reduce the number of invasive. It's like a species of mosquitoes, I guess, and it says that carry diseases like Zika, yellow fever, and Dunge.
I'm not saying I love mosquitoes, but I just think to play God here, this one's not going to end well.
I know some of those diseases have issues in Africa, but in Florida, I don't know. Those diseases run rampant in Florida to justify dropping 2.4 billion. Also, for people who may not realize this, there are like 6 billion people on Earth. They almost dropped the amount of people on Earth in mosquitoes in one part of Florida. That's a lot of fucking mosquitoes, dude.
That's a lot of mosquitoes.
There were like 6 billion people. Drop 2.4 billion mosquitoes to combat the small population in Florida that we're going to affect.
For diseases that I haven't heard taking out of a lot of people. Mm-hmm. I know, though those diseases aren't bad, and I'm sure there have been people who have been impacted by it, I have not heard of large-scale Zika happening in Florida. So if we're trying to stop Zika in Florida, I don't think the solution is 2.4. I don't know if the video is real because it's tough to tell in today's society. But did you see the one where it was a helicopter?
Yeah.
And it was like, it looked like they were like dropping like a fuel out of the helicopter. But it was mosquitoes.
It was just straight mosquitoes.
Oh,
That's what they said.
Who is in charge of these decisions?
Yeah.
Who is making these decisions?
It might be nobody.
What does that mean? Someone's making these decisions.
They might just be doing it, man.
So who gave Oxitec the sign-off? Is it the government? Is it this governor? Is it like a privatized group? Like, who is allowing this, and why are people not having a say in this? I feel like if I lived in the proximity of where these mosquitoes are getting dropped, I should be able to vote on whether it's okay or not.
Yeah.
Like, that is not cool for them to be like, hey, by the way, put a notice on your door. Mosquitoes are going to be a lot more around. Like, heads up. Like, if they're telling them at all. I don't know.
Yeah.
It says that the Environmental Protection Agency gave them the green light.
The EPA?
EPA.
Ah, here we go.
Here we go.
Let's get an EPA rep on.
They've never been wrong. Some kid and his mom, he's gonna be like, Mom, a mosquito on Mars. Like, don't worry, baby, they don't bite.
Oh, they definitely bit me. No, they said they don't bite.
Yeah, the government's never been wrong about anything.
He has this huge welt on his arm, and at the same time, they're like, no way do the mosquitoes bite.
Mysterious new disease in Florida.
And I'm going to sound ignorant on this. How do you make a mosquito not bite?
It takes a lot of discipline and training.
So,
you know, they had a bunch of 2.4 billion mosquitoes.
So many mosquitoes. Have you ever been around and you see like 30 mosquitoes around?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you're at dinner outside. It's the end of summer. And you're like, dang. And you see, like, you start slapping around and there's 30 mosquitoes. Could you imagine 2.4 billion mosquitoes?
Yeah, all over you.
All over you.
And then, like, you know what's funny? I don't know what happened, but, you know, it's the type of thing. You never know what's really going on behind the scenes, but it could be, like, somebody working at this company talking to somebody at the EPA, and the EPA is like, how you know they don't bite? And they're like, studies. And I'm like, okay. They just approved.
Industry experts.
Yeah, the industry experts, they did studies. They weren't biting. They're like, none of them were biting? We're like, it was like...
It was a small sample.
It was listen. It was a good sample size, but you know what I'm saying? They're safe and effective. They're 99% safe.
99.9% effective.
They're 99.9% effective. 9.9 don't bite, dude. Every once in a while, like 0.01 bites.
Well, if you think about that, can you pull up a calculator real quick, Eugene? We're putting you to the test, but let's say they're 99% effective. And I should know this math off the top of my head, but I don't. So, Eugene, I want you to do 2.4 billion. So that's 2,400,000.
Okay.
Right? All right, so 2.4 billion. That's how many? That's hundreds, thousands, millions. So 2, 4, 8 zeros, and a 2 and a 4, right? 2.4 billion times 0.01.
We're making up this math. Right?
No, this is real math. 2.4 billion.
No, I'm saying
they dropped 2.4.
We have no idea what that.
I don't know.
Like.
This is just a hypothetical.
Yeah.
Let's say they're 99.9% effective. Kind of like, bacteria or hand sanitizer, all of that. What is the number? 24 million. So you're telling me that if they did case studies and they said it is 99.9% effective of 2.4 billion mosquitoes, only 0.01% of these mosquitoes actually bite. Yeah. There's 24 million genetically modified biting mosquitoes. Ain't no way they made 100% effective genetically modified non-biting mosquitoes. Yeah. So we're talking 24 million biting GMO mosquitoes. Like, put it on the record now. When we release this podcast, there will be a problem from this. Yeah. We will be talking about this. I don't know if it's 1 year, 3 years, or 5 years. There's a problem coming from this.
Yeah, I remember in Deep Blue Sea. There was like one scene where the scientist was like, the shark is sleeping. And the dude was like, the shark is sleeping? He's like, yeah, I know. And she's like, I'm a scientist or some shit like that. And then the shark was, spoiler alert, not sleeping. And it's just like, sometimes I think experts might have a little too much confidence in genetically modifying things and how the long-term effects of them will. Because I think sometimes they factor in if there's a problem. By the time it gets around where it's an issue, I'll be gone.
Unless you're a senator.
Unless you're a senator, yeah. Or you're the director of some type of organization. But yeah.
So, not to beat a dead horse, but this one's not good.
This one's crazy.
Not good.
Okay. Your next topic.
All right. So the next one was talking about the topic of, which I think is another hot topic, congressional trading, like of stocks and stuff. So at face value, what are your thoughts on congressional members trading stocks?
I think they should be able to trade.
Oh, interesting.
Because then I know what I need to invest in. I think it's cool if they trade, but listen, I'm cool with y'all trading. I'm 100% cool with it. But I want your portfolios up on screens and I can follow them like the NASDAQ. Like if there's about to be a hearing on Ukraine and I see that a certain senator is buying like 5 million shares of Boeing, I want to know that and see it live so I know what I can do. At this point, I don't even have a financial advisor. I'm just following Pelosi's husband's portfolio and I'm just to the moon. I don't actually do that, but if it was available, I think there are things where it's available, but it should be like publicly displayed things. If they want to keep trading, if they want to get trading, yeah, let them trade, but let us all see what's going on with that money, baby. I want to see that.
Well, I disagree. So, first of all, members of Congress can own and trade stocks, but there's limitations. Just to give you background as to what the current system is. Under the Stop Trading on Congressional Knowledge Act, requires lawmakers to report trades and prohibits using non-public information for private trades. So the big two takeaways are according to your theory, it might not be quite as real time as you, but they do have to report the trades they do, and it has to be the trades they have to be making are based on non-public pieces of information. Here's my problem. One, there is no physical way any human being alive can be in Congress where they know the direction of where the nation's going. They're voting on every single issue that's happening, and they're getting private securitized briefings. And even if you wanted to, it's inherently information that you have where you now know it. So it's like, oh yeah, I wasn't trading it on this piece of information that I heard in it. I was just trading on it on the public information. Like, no way. It's just human nature that you're going to know it. So it's like, it's giving them this like rule set of like, hey, don't trade anything on private information, only on the public stuff. But like, how can you compartmentalize that? It's not possible. And two, I personally believe that if you are going to be in an elected office at the congressional level for the nation, you're there to serve the country. And at least for the time period you're in your elected office, that's your priority. It's not about gaining wealth. They have decent enough salaries anyway. It's not about gaining wealth. So you want to do that, go trade stocks when you get out of office. Maybe that'll incentivize going back earlier, that we don't have so many old senators and Congress people there because they want to go make their money. But while you're in office, you shouldn't be trying to profit your personal net worth. You should be focused on the betterment of the country. And to me, they shouldn't be able to trade, nor their family members, nor anyone they can pass information along to. So that's my thought process on it. But I don't understand, why do you think it's okay for them to do it?
At least immediate family, right? Like a household member, but like a cousin should be able to trade. Your cousin.
Yeah, but what? Okay, then you tell your cousin, and your cousin's getting rich.
Someone's gonna get away with it, man.
I don't know how far out along the family tree you need to go, but direct family members should definitely not be trading. It's unfortunate, but if that's what happens and you are running the country and the people have put their faith in you, you shouldn't have, even if you're not trading it and you have stuff and it's like your family or whatever, like, humans are inherently going to want to profit themselves and do what's best for their family from a financial perspective. So if that's even on the table at all, let's say they're not trading, but they know that their family has certain things or owns certain things, they'll go that direction. Like, it should not be part of their decision-making process as to what they're going to vote on and not vote on with their stocks and stuff versus how they're going to vote on a topic or issue that impacts the country. Like, it's a conflict of interest inherently.
Yeah, I understand that. One could argue that for sure, but I think it's fine as long as there's complete transparency in real time. If you're a congressman and you're voting on things, and your portfolio's publicized at a super high level, where it's like your constituents can see where your words lie and where your money lie. Because if you're the type of person to be like, oh, I'm against, marijuana laws, right? I'm voting against it. But then your constituency that you're actually putting millions of dollars in companies that make marijuana or something like that. Or it could be any subject, right? Somebody's saying that they're anti-war, but then they're buying into Lockheed Martin, Boeing, and a bunch of defense contractors. It makes you wonder, like, if you're really about the things that you're lobbying for, are you for it with not just your words but also with your money, or not? And I think that's something to consider or something to consider if we're going to allow people to trade. I'm cool with it as long as it's super transparent and everybody can see. I'm with that.
Well, that's interesting because I really thought that everyone would be against it. Like, I don't see the benefit of it, and I think that I get what you're saying where you're like, hey, at least they're going to have to show what they're doing. Are they putting their money where their mouth is? All of that. But then if they are, let's say that, they're not saying what they're doing, but they're still profiting off of their stock trades and investments. And they made a vote based on them being able to profit. Don't you think that would be influencing them to make the wrong decisions?
Potentially, and but we are hoping that they are the elected official who is, in a sense, beyond reproach, and they wouldn't do that in the first place. And if they do that, we would hope the certain, federal law enforcement would actually get involved and look into it.
Look into what?
If they did something, if they did do something. Because I'm not saying the approach I would say is foolproof. Like, people are not perfect. They could still, screw up and make a bad decision and, trade something that they do want. But if they didn't, it would be fine. But if they do, we'd hope that they're immediately caught. And here's the thing: if it's not publicized, and I think that's part of the problem. Like a lot of these people, they're submitting their trades late. Like I saw that some people are still back like 2 years on submitting where their stocks are at today, and some people haven't even submitted it, from my understanding. But if it was live, and they were making certain votes and people could see it, then the speculation would be all over the country. People could see there'd be more scrutiny, there'd be more pressure to actually do something about it.
But why do you think that? Explain to me the thing you're saying. You're saying they're beyond. We're hoping that they're beyond reproach. What does that mean?
Well, we're just hoping that they're somebody who's not gonna be, like, making bad decisions that are contrary to the law. They're upstanding citizens.
Okay. So they might
That's
not
why
be
they were
breaking the
voted in.
law, but according to this, them making decisions on it, yeah, it says the loosely non-public information. But if they're playing by the rules, they're not breaking any laws, but they are voting in accordance with how they know things are going to go, and they're making their decisions based on what they know will be profitable for them. If that's not against the law, it still may not be the right decision. And if it's not the right decision, they shouldn't be voting for it. It's like giving someone. I'm trying to think of a good metaphor. It's like giving someone a candy and saying, "Don't eat the candy." Why are you giving them the opportunity to eat the candy if they shouldn't eat the candy? Like, if we're saying don't be, influenced by profiting to be our elected official, be beyond reproach, be these good-hearted people, why are we even giving them the temptation of being able to profit off of their position of power? They shouldn't be profiting off of it. They should be focused on running the nation. There are 100 senators and however many. This is not like a big portion of America. You are running for the highest office in America. What should come with that is some responsibility that for that period of time while you're in office, you are focused on running the nation. That's your job, that's your lifestyle, and it impacts the lifestyle of millions of Americans. Everyday stuff. So we shouldn't even be putting them in a position to have the opportunity to be corrupt. We should be limiting corruption as much as possible. So if we're saying, hey, be beyond reproach, be this good person, but by the way, it's okay if you, can make $800 million off of this trade that is going to happen. How many people do you know in office right now where you'd be like, yeah, I'm very confident this congressperson is someone who's going to really make that decision? How many ones would you say? You're saying you want them to be beyond reproach, but do you really look at our elected officials and be like, yep, all of them are above board, all of them are doing what they should be doing?
Yeah, 100%. How many of them are making $100 million?
Okay, so here's some stats.
That was rhetorical.
Okay, but let me give you some stats. So, and fact check me on you don't have to active fact check, but I will say I pulled this data from online. I didn't go deep down to super verify it. But if it is in fact correct, it said that the average amount by which members of Congress stock portfolios outperformed the S&P 500 in 2022 was 17.5%. Uh-huh. So they're beating the market by 17.5%. So that means there are professional traders out there whose job is solely to beat the market, and they can't even do it. But our members of Congress are doing 17.5% better.
They're geniuses.
They're not geniuses. They're corrupt in a way. They shouldn't be in these positions. The other thing, this was 2012. I couldn't find the active one, which was crazy. But in 2012, the average net worth of a congressperson was more than $1 million. So these people are wealthy people in positions of power, trading actively. Here's a stat for you, okay? How much do you think volume-wise was traded by Congress last year? How much volume of money was traded between buying and selling of shares? How much money was being moved by our Congress?
That's a tricky one.
I got an answer for you. So
one. They're really rich. Last time I checked, Pelosi's husband's at a few $100 million.
Well, this only measured Congress, so I don't know if in that example, Pelosi's husband's trades would have been counted.
Okay.
Which is a whole nother problem.
Okay. I'll go $200 million.
In 2022, if this is correct, in 2022, there was $355 million worth of money moved by Congress through buying and selling throughout the year.
Who's your source?
I can look it up, but that was the fact I found. So if that is in fact true, over $250 million was being moved by Congress. Let me ask you something. One, you want these people beyond reproach. So these people are altruistically trading this money. And two, you don't want them influenced by these decisions. And three, what could they be doing for our country as opposed to thinking about trades? Even if they were, let's just go with the scenario. They're beyond reproach. They're good-hearted people. They're doing all that. I don't want my congressperson spending enough time to move $355 million worth of money as opposed to go to your community. You know what? Stop spending so much time trading in front of your computer and making a lot of money and go to your community and talk to your citizens, or go read up on a topic that is important to the country and become more educated on that. If you have been elected and the people have put their faith in you, why in the world are you spending so much time trying to get rich? That's not the point of being in office. The point of being in office is to make your constituents' lives better. And they're not doing that. They're trying to get rich. It should be outlawed.
Make it transparent. Let us watch it. We can tailgate to the stocks right before a congressional hearing. I wonder what kind of stocks they were trading before that dude was talking about aliens the other day.
That would be interesting.
You know what I mean?
That would be super interesting. Kind of go down the rabbit hole. See what they were trading right around that
what
time.
What were they trading?
What are the alien stocks?
Yeah, they're buying some Boeing. They're buying
You think
Boeing and Airbus.
Drone stocks. There's a theory around drones.
Lockheed, you know. Who's got the anti-spacecraft missiles? You know what I mean?
I don't know. I have three main problems with Congress being able to trade.
Go off, King.
One, like I said multiple times, you can't be unbiased. If you are trading stocks, you're biased and your voting is going to be impacted by that. Two, you're giving corporations influence over you. Because once you own those stocks and they know it, they know that there's someone in you're someone in their camp and that they can have some sway over you. So now corporations are really leaning on you. And three, I think it just disconnects you from the people. If you go into office with one net worth thinking one thing and you're so focused on that, you're forgetting what the average everyday American is focused on, and they don't have the surplus income to be able to start investing this money and trading like you. So even if it was public, they would just be watching you. It's not like they can profit off it at the same time. So why don't you take a little less time making money for yourself and a little bit more time figuring out how to get more money into your constituents' pocket? So those are my three problems. I think it should be outlawed. I think that I'm surprised to hear that you're cool with it, but I think there needs to be a bipartisan effort to get this done because it's a problem to me.
I like to zag.
You're zagging.
I like to zag.
I
like
zigged,
to zag.
you're zagged.
And listen, I totally get what you're coming from. And at face value, you know, the things you say are valid, for sure. But I also recognize if they can't trade, and a lot of them are really wealthy, but some may not. And some, may be missing out on some of the best years of their life to actually build a little bit of wealth because they're serving the nation. And I think it is possible to both do well in the stock market and serve the country well. But something needs to be done. The fact that we don't know exactly what's going on in a live matter, or that it's possible for this to be done and no one notices, is a problem. Basically, the system now is a problem. Something needs to be done ASAP is my concern. But I'll be honest, if Theos' theory of end the stock trading happened tomorrow, they pass that law, not something I'm losing sleep for. I'm not going to be over here like, damn it, they can't trade another $300 million next year. I'm not sweating it. I think I'm a little more lenient. I'm zagging, but no, a lot of things you say are valid. Hopefully some of it goes viral.
And I'll give you the last word, but I don't see a downside. And I guess the only downside I see to it is what you're presenting, which is these poor, wealthy conundrum, but these wealthy Congress people can't be maximizing their future earnings during the time they're serving the country.
I said some of them are not super wealthy.
Okay, but even if that's the case, they're not increasing their net worth with their all $100,000 plus salaries, mind you.
Yeah.
If that is the negative outcome of it, I don't think that's a problem. I genuinely don't. And again, I think that it hopefully would give congressional people some perspective as to why they are where they are. If you're going into Congress and still focusing on increasing your net worth, you're not focused on why you're there. It's like an athlete when they're not focused. Like when you think about Kobe would look at all of those other people who were in the NBA and they're like, hey, y'all are partying and drinking and doing this stuff. I'm in the gym in the morning. I'm putting shots up. I'm getting better at my craft. I am the best possible version I can be. And then he looks at these other athletes and they're out here like partying and drinking and doing all that stuff. And he's like, you're not focused on why you're here. I look at Congress the same way. Yeah, first of all, they probably are partying and drinking and doing stuff in Congress. But at the same time, they're trading and trying to profit and do all these things that very easily is a slippery slope to corruption. So it's like you're here to be a congressional person. Focus on your craft. Be the best elected official you can be. Stop trading.
America.
So, I don't know. Anything else you got on it?
No, that's about it. You know, like I said, I'm not gonna beat it with a dead horse. You have a lot of valid points. I'm cool with it being live. I don't want to. We already have enough trouble getting good people to run. I don't want to deter anymore people who are really successful from, maybe wants to run, but
I think it would actually make us have a better quality of candidate if they couldn't do it anymore.
Potentially,
it'd be a true.
I could see.
What was the word? Person beyond reproach, because then they wouldn't be in it for themselves anymore.
Yeah, potentially, but you never know until things happen.
It's true.
You never know what kind of goofballs we show up. Once you take the money out of it, get a bunch of goofballs who are like, well, I've never ran a company and I've never been rich, but I can definitely make good decisions now. But hey, I digress.
You know what? That's fair. Man.
I digress. All right. So we're running a little not short on time, but we are probably about 30 minutes ish into this, or
close to
more.
An hour, I think.
So let's end it with this. Let's talk 3 local businesses we might want to have on the podcast. So I'll go first.
You go first.
Yeah. One of the people I was thinking, one of the organizations I was thinking that I thought would be good is DMV Bites. They are a local restaurant that's opened up in the last few years, and they have an awesome social media presence. I haven't tried their food yet. I'm actually looking to try their food in the next week, but everything I've seen about them online, people hype it up. And because they're new, I definitely would love to show them some love and talk to them how they've been able to build a success in such a short amount of time and build a social media presence. And so everyone who's had their food so far has told me it's dank, nothing but good reviews. So definitely excited to look forward to trying their food. Would love to have the founder come on and talk about what got him started, the name DMV Bites. Like, that's a really good name, super catchy. I don't know if you want me to do the next 2 or if you
just go off on all yours.
Okay, the next one is Inside Nova. Inside Nova is they're a paper, but they also have a website that just talks about the local news in the area. I love their stories. They're not super political. They're very much to the point. They do a great job covering sports, crime, real estate. They just have a really good ear to the beat of the DMV heart. And I have looked into the founder. I believe his name is Bruce. Would love to have him on and just talk about what it was like building that, because I know he got it, from my understanding, from like Berkshire Hathaway at some point, because it was bundled into a bunch of other newspapers. But just love to hear his perspective on that, building the brand, and where they plan to go at some point in the future. And then third, I tried a place recently called Los Chamacos in Arlington, and they are a really good Mexican restaurant that I tried. Their birria pizza, which was so dank. Such a good restaurant, and the people there were super friendly, and they're actually pretty new. I believe they opened up during COVID, and so they have a pretty good presence on social media too, and they do a pretty good job just constantly marketing the material, and their food is good. I had their chips and salsa as well. So good. I got to get you out there to try
Yeah, I
it.
haven't tried it yet.
It's so good. Would love to hear their story. Like I said, they're also from the local area. They're out in Arlington. Would love to get Los Chamacos on the podcast. The founders on there. So I don't know.
I'm not prepared for this question, so I'm going to just cheat, okay? The 3 people I'd like to have on the podcast, I'm not going to go local businesses. I couldn't think of good ones. Well, I got 1 and then 2 that aren't, just from the podcast. 1, I want someone from this Oxitec company, the one who are dropping these mosquitoes. I'm going to research them and reach out. I can almost guarantee you they're not coming on, but someone's got to explain this mosquito thing to me.
They're not going to like your questions.
They're not going to like my questions. They're not going to like questions. 2, someone from the EPA who authorized Oxitec to go, because this mosquito thing really got me riled up. So that. And then 3, on a serious note, there's a buddy of mine, longtime friend, good friend of mine, who started a media company called All Pro Reels. And they actually do like media for a lot of the big sports teams and all of that. So would eventually like to get them on the pod too, kind of hear their story, how they got started, how they got access to a bunch of these teams and things like that. So those are the 3 that I'd be focused on.
Yeah. He has a couple companies, right?
Yeah.
He's a real one. Love to have him on. So, all right. I think that about wraps up all the things I have today. I don't know if you have anything else.
I'm good.
You're good?
Yeah.
Shout out to Pope.
Shout out to Pope. We're not doing brother to brother?
Oh, you know what? I thought of a new segment recently. that Theo and I kind of came together recently, and it's called the brother to brother segment. And this is where Theo and I will take a list of candidates, and we may or may not want to talk to them, all of them. We might just talk to one of them. And we just, they may be in the news for a variety of reasons. And we're just brother to brother talking through their dilemmas in life.
Yeah.
So,
advice that you would give to your brother if they were going through something and they need to hear some honest, true advice.
They're going through something and they don't really want to hear it, but you're sitting on the couch watching the game, drinking a beer. And you're like, hey, man. Brother to brother, you fucking up. Or, brother to brother, like, you need to get it together right now. So, here are our 3 candidates. Ron DeSantis, Jerome Powell, James Harden.
Do you want to go first, or how do you want? Why don't you pick the person for me, and then I'll give my honest advice. Because I have different advice for each of them. So you tell me who you would want me to give brotherly advice to right now, and I'll go off. And then you can give me what you'd say.
Okay.
Of those 3, who would you want me to?
And
maybe I'll pick one for you out of the 3.
So I'm picking one for you, and you're picking one for me?
Of those 3.
Okay. Let's go Jerome Powell.
Jerome
Powell.
All right.
and Eugene, can you look up Jerome Powell and give us his official title for the viewers, unless you know it off the top of your head? His official title.
He's the head of the Fed.
Yeah, but what's his official title?
Chair of the Fed Reserve. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
Chair of the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell.
All right. If I was talking to Jerome Powell, here's just to summarize super quick, and we should keep these short. I think quick brotherly advice. Jerome Powell is the head of the Federal Reserve. They're in charge of a lot of things that impact monetary policy in the country. Most importantly, they kind of deal with interest rates and kind of where those are going. Maybe not most importantly, but a big factor of what they work on is that. With the inflation problem that's been happening over the past year and a half, they've had to take steps to address inflation. One of the major monetary policy tools you can do to address inflation is to increase interest rates, because in theory it kind of slows down the economy and kind of cools off the inflation. So that's the problem. The last piece of the problem is that when you raise interest rates, kind of going off of that, you slow down the economy and all of that. So at some point you can raise interest rates so high that it actually creates a recession. And what they've been trying to do is create a quote unquote soft landing, which is a way for them to get rid of inflation without crashing the economy. right now I think we're at this interesting point where they have raised pretty aggressively over the past year and a half. Inflation has gotten down. I think last I checked it was like 3 something. It was as high as 8 at one point. So they've definitely made progress. It's like between 3 and 4, I know. But inflation is sticky and it's not gone down to their 2% target rate. And at the same time, interest rates are high and it's starting to impact both individuals trying to borrow money as well as businesses for future borrowing rates as well. So I say that he's in a rock and a hard place for what to do. Do you raise rates, keep rates the same, or cut rates? If I was talking to him brother to brother, I would tell him that he needs to keep raising rates, but ever so slowly. I have thoughts on the Federal Reserve in general, but I do think that inflation is a problem, and it is what they call the biggest thief of money. And if inflation continues to go, it only hurts your everyday person, because you go into that grocery store, and we all see it right now, that those bills, when you get to the end and get your receipt, it's a lot higher. Inflation is a problem that has to be completely attacked. At the same time, when you increase interest rates, it hurts buyer's power for buying a house or getting a loan or those types of things. So it also hurts the individual person on the other side too. But I just genuinely believe that if we can't get inflation under control, the economy could keep going for longer, but there is a day of reckoning on the other side too, so you have to get inflation under control. So they've been super aggressive and they've had progress. I think they need to have kind of what they've been doing. So I have problems with the Fed all the time, but I think they've done a decent job of, hey, raise, pause, and we need to get into that cycle based on reactiveness. So nothing groundbreaking there, but it's just like, honestly, keep doing what you're doing. All right, for you,
Okay.
what is your brother-to-brother advice for DeSantis?
DeSantis.
Yes.
Old Ronnie boy.
Ronnie boy.
Okay. So a little background for some people who aren't keeping up with the whole Ron DeSantis thing. So essentially, right now we all know that the presidential election's coming up. And on the Democrat side, more than likely it's going to be Joe Biden running. That's what has been indicated. The only person who's really even challenged him from what I've been able to see is Robert F. Kennedy. And then on the Republican side, Trump, nobody knows if he's actually really going to be able to run because he has a lot of indictments. And then you got a whole bunch of people. You have Nikki Haley, you have Vivek Ramaswamy, who has come out of nowhere and started bawling to get up his followers. He's been jumping on every podcast from The Breakfast Club to I think I saw him on the Patrick Bet-David podcast as well. He's just been going everywhere, and he has tied Ron DeSantis as second. And earlier in the year, people thought that if anybody was going to beat Trump for that nomination, it would be DeSantis. Well, things have changed dramatically. And Mr. DeSantis, has not done a great job really taking a lead like he should have to possibly win the nomination. And it just is looking less and less likely as if he is going to win the nomination or even become the president. So I guess if I was just brother to brother with Ron, I'd be like, hey, man, at this point, go fix the mosquito problem in Florida. Go fix that mosquito problem, bro. I don't know if there's really a big coming back. He's missed he's missed a couple events that I heard hurt him with the base, and it just seems like he's not being aggressive with his stance from what I've seen. I've seen that he's kind of just not making any waves and not going uninhibited like somebody who is really gunning for that number one position like Vivek. So I would just say, head back to Florida, brother. Go ahead. You did Florida well. You can keep doing Florida well. And who knows? Maybe you end up being a senator or something like that. I don't know how old he is. So if there's no max limit, he still has a long political career ahead of him. And who knows, man? 2028, figure out maybe a new political strategist, think about it all over. But brother to brother, just, it's okay. You tried. You tried.
All right. Well, hopefully our brothers listen to us on those. And yeah, so good episode. A lot of ranting on this one. A lot of ranting. So next one's going to be a guest one. So surprise for who that's going to be, but excited about the next one. But this has been good, man.
Yeah.
Until the next time.
Shout out to Pope.